Hi, I'm Ian and welcome back to Astro Time Traveller. This is the third episode I'm doing on the Pillars of Creation, M16, and tonight I'm going to try and capture more data on this target, and then when I add it to the first two nights I've done, see what comes out and see if I'm starting to see a better image. I think also in this video I'm going to show how I select the best images that I take using SubframeSelector, in particular in PixInsight, and possibly a bit of blink also in PixInsight. So stay tuned and let's see how we get on with my third night on M16 and the Pillars of Creation. So here I am, just as you can see, it's top left hand, it's 2:40 in the morning, and I'm just about to do my first image, having moved on to M16 to see the Pillars of Creation. So the guiding's not that great at about 1.1, 1.2, but here comes the first image, so let's just see what we get. And it's just starting to load up, and there we can see it. So it's inverted, so it's upside down for the Pillars of Creation. And M16, just darken it a little bit, and then what we can do is let's just move into check the stars and see what the star count was. 2.87. That's pretty good for my seeing area. It's fairly low on my horizon, so I'm going through a lot of atmosphere. Now let's just zoom in and we can see, well, actually the stars in this first image, probably going to throw that away because it looks pretty elongated on some of those, you can see. So that's probably because of the tracking, etc. wasn't so great, but at least we're definitely on target. So we can now probably leave it to run through the night, knowing that it's in a kind of good position to do that. And what I tend to do is at the end of the night, I then come back and I'll start to look at each of the images to see exactly what I actually got from the night's imaging. And I've got about 2 hours of imaging here. So here we go, looking back. Image 1, and this is now image 2. So I'm just reviewing at the end of the night all of my images. And what I tend to do is I do this so I can see if there's any particular ones that are bad because of guiding, or if I've got a very strong satellite going through the image, or in particular when I'm doing M16, at some stage it goes across an electrical wire across my neighbour's other side of their garden. So it starts to go across there and gets some kind of dark shadows on part of the image. But as you can see, most of these, so this is now up to image 13, about 3:45 in the morning. I'm pretty happy with those. I know it was getting light at about 4:30, I think, when I was doing this, so those aren't too bad. I'm happy, not any satellites going through them, so that looks pretty good. Whoops, there we go. So something happened there. And now I think you can see the darkness on the left, now on the right of the wire that I'm having to track across where this is. So probably all those ones from 17, from about 18 onwards, I'm going to dump at some stage, because now you can see they're getting light as we go through to the early morning. So the actual image is getting deteriorated with each one. And I left this to run, so I only find this out in the morning. It goes back to home position once it's finished running. So that was the collection of the data. Now let's go into PixInsight and into SubframeSelector as to how I'm going to decide which images to take forward. So you can see I've now got 17. So out of the 26, I dumped everything after 17 because they're just no good at all. You can play around with the parameters, but I just leave them as standard because I'm just getting a sense of it. And if I upload, you can now see here's all the images. From index, I'll move it to the SNR weight, and you can see as it went through the night, it got better and got weaker. So I'm going to dump the first one, which is even below the light grey area. And I'm just doing this very quickly, and then I will go on to the full width half maximum. That's usually quite a good way of seeing what kind of strength you're getting. And again, you're looking for the high values here. The higher, the worse it is. So here I'm just clicking on the ones that I don't really want to keep because they're above even the grey. Really, I should probably try and go into the dark grey, but let's just do this quickly. And then eccentricity, if I just go onto that, again, There's one there that's way above the grey, so I'll click onto that. So I'm just identifying the frames that I think have got some weakness in them that I want to not actually stack. And then if I do stars as my last, almost my last parameter, let's have a look. So yeah, most of those have already been picked up. There's one down there in the grey, but I think I'm going to leave that in, and we'll see how that comes through. I'm going to look at blink in a second. Then if I look at median across the night, this will show me again how the night went. So it got better pretty much like you saw in the SNR through the night, and then weakened as we started to get out to the morning as the light started to come back in as dawn was breaking. So I'm pretty happy with those. I've got I think 11 out of 17 to process, so 6 I'm going to dump. So what I'll do is I'll just go back to index and put them into index. You can do it a different way of actually identifying them, but I just, with only these number, I look at index and I can see I don't want 1, 2 and 3, so I shall get rid of those. And then if I go further down, I don't want number 10 either, and number 13 and number 17. So I just write those down and I'll take those into my junk file. In a second, you can close down the SubframeSelector because we don't want to use that. I'm going to move on to using blink next, just to have a close look in at the actual images and the stars. So let's close that down. Now let's go into processes and go into blink. And again, I'll just pick up all the 17 images that I've got there. Normally I would just dump the ones that I've already selected to come out and just look at the subset. But here let's just have a look at all of the 17. And you want to click that little box there to make sure you're kind of processing all of them at the same equivalence with a bit of stretch. And then if we zoom into the detail, we can start looking at what the stars actually look like. And there's that first image that we saw earlier that wasn't very good. Even we saw the stars were a bit elongated in that in the ASI Air Pro. And you can see 2 and 3 are a bit dodgy, as we already know, that we want to get rid of. And then we start to get some that are a bit more rounded stars, so I'm a bit more happy with that. You can see there's a bit of dithering going on as they move around, but again, I might just want to take out some of these. There's that number 10 that we know was a problem from the other elements we did, and number 13 again, it's just highlighting. And you can see here I'm just unticking those boxes because I'm going to put them into junk in a second. But actually 15 doesn't look too good either, so 14 was okay, but 15, the stars are a bit elongated, and so is 16. So I'm going to dump probably a couple more on top of the 6 already. So take out 17. So once I've unticked all of those, I can then go through and just highlight them one by one, and then I can actually put them into a separate folder, which I create for the junks for each of the nights and each of the images I've taken. So I can just go back to the top, and then I'll start clicking on these ones that are unticked and just quickly do all of that. So there's not too many this time. Unfortunately, because it rises very early in the morning or late in the evening, I don't get many images. So 17 is going to be down to probably about 9, I think. And then I just go through into my folder to where I have the night's imaging, and I have under the lights I have a junk file. You just click on there and it will dump all of those into that folder. So you're now ready to process. So that's just a quick run through of what I do. I take a little bit more time than I'm showing here on how I select the best images that I want to process. So then I go into Deep Sky Stacker and process those images with the ones I did on earlier nights to get a cumulative. And here's the results overall. So this was the very first night I did, which I think ended up with either 6 or 7 of the images that I took that night. And you can see there's quite a bit of noise in that image. And then here was the second time I did it. So this was, I think, another cumulative to about the 24th of April. And you can see the definition is definitely coming through a lot better on the Pillars of Creation compared to the first one. There's a lot less noise in there as well. And here's the latest one. So this is now cumulative to, I think, the 25th of April. And again, you can see that's more definition than I was getting in the early ones. Now, clearly, I processed these each slightly differently. I'll show you in another video how I do that to get kind of coloration coming out, even though I'm using the L-Extreme one-shot color filter. You can play around to try and simulate to a degree the Hubble Palette, etc. So that's why they all look slightly different, because I've just processed them slightly differently. But if you zoom in, you can see that the cumulative data one, the most recent one on the right, does seem to have more information in it, does seem to have a better definition of the pillars of creation, which is what I'm expecting, which is what this is all about, is just trying to get more and more data to improve the overall image. So I'm pretty happy with how that's gone so far. I'm going to wait and try and do a few more nights to get more and more cumulative data. I think I've got about 25 or 26 frames currently. I'd like to get up to probably something in excess of 50 to really get a full image that's worth processing and getting something of high quality. So I hope you've enjoyed that and got something out of it. And I'll leave you with that final image of the cumulative ones I've done to date.